Hey everyone, Doward here, working on the Arrma Vortex, little truggy. Going to be pulling the shocks off today and working on changing out, doing a little tuning on, change out the shock oil and whatnot. I've got some 30 weight oil I'm going to try out first, and I've got some 40 weight if that still turns out to be a little too thin. So let's see what we need to do here. Looks like we've got screw in the back that's got to come out, so I'll get out the tools. Now I don't know what rate the shock springs are, but I'm going to try to determine that at some point in the future. Looks like these use lock nuts. And there's a spacer. Alright. Here's one shock. Pull this up. This slides right off there. Spring cup. It's got a little bit of pressure to it. Yeah, these aren't even filled. Air pressure in the bladder should actually push these back, so let's slide off the dual clips. Let's take a look at what we got inside. Looks like this shock is a little under halfway filled. That's a little disappointing. Appears to have an air bladder there. You see the shock is by no means topped off. So let's take a paper towel here, pour out the old oil. Alright, Alright, O-ring seal on the bottom. These are a 2-hole piston design. .3mm thickness. So we've got a 3mm center rod, dual hole piston, and we have, let's see, the internal diameter on these are 10mm bore. One, 2, 3, 23, looks like 23.5mm depth. So I'll calculate out what that volume equals a little later. There's no bladder there. I'm trying to pull this out. That does not appear to be a bladder. in there at all. I believe that's just supposed to be an airspace inside of it. Not really a bladder-filled shock. I thought I saw that these were supposed to be bladder-filled. Now when I fill shocks, I tend to fill them up about halfway, and then I like to work the piston up and down, just to try to make sure that any air that may be trapped under there has a chance to come out. Now I'll make sure the rod's fully extended. And top her off. Oh, much better already. Look at this. That's the air pushing against it. It actually gives a spring a slight, or it gives it a slight progressive spring to it. I'm not going to make any adjustments to the ride height. I like to only make one adjustment at a time, so I know what actually has changed. Helps if I put the rod end back on. Where did we put that? Alright, now notice that the front and the rear shocks are two different sizes. So I'm going to pull one of the rear shocks off next, and we'll take the measurements of it. Now the rear shocks are actually in the inner holes from the factory. So what I'll probably do is, after testing out the 30 weight oil, I will move the rears outward as well. Alright. Front screw. Same deal on the rear shocks. See, they only go in one way. Let's pull this down. A little dust and dirt back there. Oh, these actually might have a little bit of oil in them. Really put these rod ends on tight. Same basic design. Yeah, no proper air bladder. These, you can see, do actually have some oil in them. The rears are also dual hole pistons. 10mm bore. One, two, three, four, 5. 35mm depth. Alright, let's top this guy off. same thing there. We screw the rod end back on. They do feel, I have to admit, the rods feel pretty good. There's a little bit of stiction to it, the friction from the rod sliding in and out, but it's not horrible. And as I said before, these are actually installed on the inside. So we'll get that started and get that installed. This side done. So I'll give you a little demo. And then the backs. Alright, so I'm going to do these two sides next. I'm not going to really bother to record them. Nah, what the heck, I'll go ahead and record them. Okay, so I've got to do both these sides still. So let me go ahead and get to work on those. Well, how about this? Well, check that out. 4 clips, pops right out. Comes right out. Makes it real easy to get to these. I wish I had noticed that on the other side. I like that. I have to admit, I like that. I wish I would have realized that it popped out that easily. Makes me think that when they were designing this, they were actually thinking of somebody working on it. So far, I'll say that my impression of Arrma has been that of a good design that needs a little better assembly going on. Let's see what we got here. Slide this out, and but it feels like there's like absolutely no dampening action at all. Just real quick, these shocks have an overall eye-to-eye length of about 77 millimeters. Outer diameter of 12 millimeter. These rod ends are definitely over tightened on there. About 3/4 filled. Alright, where did that rod end go? Much better. Alright. Let's reassemble the shock. Put this back on here. Put this here. Now it feels like we've got some dampening. Alright. Get this guy installed back on here. Outer hole. We gotta find the hole. There we go. We'll tighten the bolt back up. Now you are threading metal into plastic, so it's very important that you don't over tighten it. When it stops, just snug just a hair more and you're good. We'll reinstall the front body mount. Reinstall our clips. When you put the clips in, the bent part of the clip on the front needs to be facing toward the rear of the vehicle. I just tried to install it the other way and it wouldn't let me. We'll remove the rear shock. Slide this rear shock right off here. And same deal, there's like no damping at all. No damping at all in this. Of course, these are way over tightened again. This one actually, I don't know if you can see from the milkiness in it, but this one actually had a bunch of air in it. You see those bubbles? Almost filled, but filled with air, unfortunately. Work all that out of there and throw that away. Top this guy off. Now what I do when I fill these is I make sure the piston's all the way at the bottom. Okay? By making sure the piston's all the way at the bottom, I reduce how much air is able to even get trapped in there in the first place. top this guy back off. One about even with where I had the other shock. It's always important to make sure that your fluid levels are approximately equal. I mean, if you get really serious about it, you can actually go and measure just how much you've got in each one. Now see, when I tighten these rod ends, I'm just barely I'm applying moderate pressure to the pliers. I just spin this around like this until the whole thing starts spinning. As soon as the whole thing starts spinning, I know it bottomed out. I don't need to tighten it up more than that. The threads hold it in place, and it's not allowed to spin itself. It also helps if I assemble the rest of the shock. Where did my end cap go? There it is. So I'll put this in there. Much better. I actually feel like I've got some pressure against it now. Slide this top part in. There we go. And these were on the inside, if I remember correctly. Let me check. Yes. Again, be careful you don't over tighten it. See, it just stopped moving. I'm applying very little pressure. I go, just a hair bit more. Just a hair bit more. Now this feels much better. When I push on it, I feel resistance. Much, much nicer. Doesn't bottom out on me. I think this guy will be ready. I'll take this out and do some testing with it.